FDA approves a twice-yearly shot to prevent HIV. Date, June 18, 2025. On June 18, 2025, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration (FDA) made a groundbreaking announcement by approving Yeztugo lenacapavir, a new injectable pre-exposure prophylaxis PrEP that requires administration only twice a year. This significant development marks a major milestone in the fight against HIV, as it is the first and only long-acting injectable option available in the United States for individuals at risk of acquiring HIV. The approval follows extensive clinical trials that have demonstrated remarkable efficacy and safety for this innovative treatment. Clinical trials and efficacy. The FDA's approval of Yeztugo was primarily based on the results from two pivotal Phase 3 clinical trials known as PURPOSE 1 and PURPOSE 2. In these trials, over 99.9% of participants maintained an HIV-negative status after receiving the treatment. Specifically, the PURPOSE 1 trial, which included 2,134 participants, reported 0 new HIV infections among those receiving Yeztugo, particularly highlighting its effectiveness among cisgender women in sub-Saharan Africa. The PURPOSE 2 trial, involving 2,179 participants, showed only 2 infections, predominantly in cisgender men and gender-diverse individuals. These results indicate that lenacapavir is not only safe but also more effective than existing daily oral PrEP options such as Truvada. Significance of the approval. The introduction of Yeztugo is seen as a transformative breakthrough in HIV prevention strategies, particularly in populations that have historically struggled with adherence to daily medication regimens. Challenges such as stigma, access to healthcare, and the burden of daily pill taking have limited the effectiveness of current PrEP options. Experts including Dr. Carlos Del Rio emphasized that Yeztugo could significantly enhance PrEP adoption among underserved communities, potentially reshaping the landscape of HIV prevention. Concerns and accessibility. Despite the promising data surrounding Yeztugo, concerns about accessibility and affordability persist, particularly in low and middle-income countries where healthcare infrastructure may not support regular injection schedules. Gilead Sciences, the developer of lenacapavir, is exploring options for self-administration and has negotiated licensing agreements with generic manufacturers to ensure availability in resource-limited settings. However, while pricing details remain to be finalized, there are fears that costs may still pose barriers for lower-income populations. Advocacy groups have also raised alarms about recent cuts to U.S. funding for global HIV programs, which could hinder the potential impact of Yeztugo. The dismantling of infrastructure necessary for effective distribution and education on HIV prevention raises questions about how well the new treatment can fit into existing public health strategies. The future of HIV treatment and prevention. Yeztugo's approval represents more than just a new treatment option, it signals a new direction in HIV prevention. The long-acting nature of lenacapavir could make it easier for individuals to maintain protective measures against HIV, thus reducing new infection rates. The Global Fund to Fight AIDS, Tuberculosis and Malaria has expressed optimism that lenacapavir could help increase the number of people engaged in prevention programs. However, it is important to note that Yeztugo is not a vaccine. Unlike vaccines, which train the immune system to fight infections, lenacapavir acts as a direct antiviral agent that remains in the body to fend off any potential HIV exposure. This distinction is crucial, especially in light of ongoing vaccine research efforts, which now face heightened challenges due to the availability of such effective prevention methods. Moving forward, as Gilead prepares to launch Yeztugo, it is essential to consider how to address the barriers to access and affordability that could hinder its impact. The company is actively working on ensuring broad insurance coverage and has launched programs to provide the medication for free to uninsured individuals in the U.S. Furthermore, Gilead is pursuing regulatory approvals in other countries aiming to extend the reach of lenacapavir globally. In conclusion, while lenacapavir represents a monumental advancement in HIV prevention, its success will largely depend on how effectively these challenges surrounding accessibility, education, and healthcare infrastructure are addressed. The global health community is hopeful that Yeztugo will play a central role in the ongoing efforts to combat the HIV epidemic, ultimately leading to a future where the threat of HIV is significantly diminished. Sources: 1. Time. FDA approves a twice-yearly shot to prevent HIV. https://time.com/7295343/FDA HIV shot lenacapavir Yeztugo/. 2. Gilead Sciences. Yeztugo lenacapavir is now the first and only FDA-approved HIV prevention option, offering 6 months of protections. www.gilead.com/news/news details 2025 Yeztugo lenacapavir is now the first and only FDA-approved HIV prevention option, offering 6 months of protection. 3. Yahoo Finance. FDA approves Gilead's twice-yearly shot for HIV prevention. //finance.yahoo.com/news/FDA approves Gilead's twice-yearly 173000636.html. The recent FDA approval of Yeztugo lenacapavir, the first injectable HIV prevention option requiring administration just twice a year, represents a significant advancement in HIV prevention strategies. This decision is primarily based on data from 2 pivotal Phase 3 trials, PURPOSE 1 and PURPOSE 2, showing over 99.9% of participants remained HIV negative after treatment. However, while the approval is celebrated, several counterintuitive elements emerge regarding its potential impact and the broader context of HIV prevention efforts. 1. Effectiveness versus accessibility. While Yeztugo has demonstrated exceptional efficacy in clinical trials, concerns about accessibility in low and middle income countries persist. Gilead Sciences is exploring self-administration options and negotiating with generic manufacturers for broader availability. However, the reality is that without strong healthcare infrastructures in these regions, even a highly effective treatment may not reach those most in need. This illustrates the paradox that high efficacy alone does not guarantee widespread impact if access remains limited. 2. Adherence challenges. The approval of a twice-yearly injection addresses adherence issues seen with daily oral PrEP medications. Yet this raises a counterintuitive concern. While less frequent dosing could potentially improve adherence, the need for clinical administration may pose barriers for vulnerable populations who lack consistent access to healthcare providers. This suggests that the convenience of a biannual injection does not automatically translate into improved outcomes if systemic barriers to healthcare persist. 3. Stigma and perception. The stigma surrounding HIV and its treatments could paradoxically hinder the adoption of Yeztugo despite its advantages. While the drug aims to reduce stigma associated with daily pill regimens, the requirement for healthcare visits for injections may inadvertently reinforce stigma for some individuals who prefer the privacy of taking a daily pill. This complex dynamic highlights that reducing stigma in one area might inadvertently create stigma in another. For impact on vaccine research, lenacapavir's approval could unintentionally dampen efforts to develop an HIV vaccine. As the efficacy of lenacapavir is demonstrated, the ethical justification for placebo-controlled trials in vaccine development becomes questionable. Researchers may face challenges in recruiting participants when effective treatment options are available, complicating the landscape of HIV prevention research. This indicates a counterintuitive situation where the success of one preventive measure could hinder the development of another. 5. Economic viability. The anticipated pricing of Yeztugo being aligned with existing PrEP options raises concerns about economic viability. While Gilead aims to ensure affordability through insurance collaborations and assistance programs, the ultimate cost may still be prohibitive for low-income populations in the US and abroad. This situation underscores the paradox where a breakthrough drug could simultaneously promise to improve health outcomes while potentially remaining out of reach for those who need it most. 6. Global health infrastructure. The timing of the drug's approval comes amid significant cuts to U.S. support for global HIV programs. While Yeztugo is a scientific breakthrough, the dismantling of healthcare infrastructure necessary for its implementation could severely limit its effectiveness.
This situation presents a counterintuitive reality where a major advancement in prevention could occur alongside a decline in the very systems needed to support it.
7. Long-term efficacy versus immediate need. Yeztugo is positioned as a transformative option in the fight against HIV.
Yet its true impact might take years or even decades to materialize fully.
This raises the question of whether immediate funding and infrastructure support will be diverted to focus on a promising new drug rather than addressing existing gaps in care and prevention strategies. It highlights the tension between promoting innovative solutions and ensuring that foundational public health measures remain robust.
In summary, while Yeztugo presents an exciting advancement in HIV prevention, the interplay between efficacy, access, stigma, economic viability, and the broader context of public health underscored by underlying systemic issues complicates the narrative. The counterintuitive nature of these elements suggests that the success of this new approach to HIV prevention requires not only scientific innovation but also a comprehensive understanding of the socioeconomic and systemic barriers that persist in global health landscapes. The FDA's approval of Yeztugo lenacapavir on June 18, 2025. As a twice-yearly injectable option for HIV prevention is a landmark achievement in the ongoing battle against the HIV epidemic. While the efficacy of this drug, showing over 99.9% effectiveness in preventing HIV infection during clinical trials, is significant, several important aspects of this approval and its implications are likely to be overlooked by many observers.
Importance of long-acting injectable options. One of the most critical points surrounding Yeztugo is its status as the first and only injectable pre-exposure prophylaxis PrEP that patients need to take only twice a year. This development addresses long-standing adherence issues associated with daily oral PrEP medications. The adherence to daily medications has historically been problematic due to various factors, including the stigma associated with HIV, the inconvenience of daily dosing, and access to healthcare facilities. Many individuals, especially those in high-risk populations, fail to comply with daily oral regimens, leading to increased rates of HIV transmission. The significance of a long-acting injectable option cannot be overstated. By reducing the frequency of dosing, Yeztugo may enhance uptake among populations that have been underserved by traditional PrEP methods. This could lead to a substantial decrease in new infections and could play a pivotal role in curbing the HIV epidemic, especially in areas with high transmission rates. Experts have pointed out that the long-acting nature of lenacapavir could transform prevention strategies, making them more tenable and accessible.
Efficacy in diverse populations.
The clinical trials for Yeztugo demonstrated impressive efficacy across diverse populations.
In the Purpose 1 trial, there were 0 HIV infections among 2,134 participants, particularly among cisgender women in sub-Saharan Africa.
The Purpose 2 trial showed only 2 infections among 2,179 participants, primarily among cisgender men and gender-diverse individuals. This highlights the drug's effectiveness across different demographics, which is crucial for public health strategies aiming to reduce disparities in HIV transmission.
However, the trial's success rates might overshadow pressing issues related to actual implementation and access in real-world settings.
The drug's efficacy in controlled trial environments does not guarantee similar outcomes in the broader population, where social determinants of health, economic barriers, and healthcare access can significantly impact effectiveness.
Accessibility and affordability concerns.
While the approval of Yeztugo is a positive step, significant concerns remain about its accessibility, particularly in low and middle-income countries. These regions often have healthcare infrastructures that may not support regular injectable treatments and face challenges in ensuring that at-risk populations receive the necessary care. Gilead Sciences is reportedly working on self-administration options and has negotiated licensing agreements with generic manufacturers to enhance availability in these regions.
However, the pricing strategy for Yeztugo has not yet been disclosed.
The expectation that it will align with existing PrEP options raises concerns about affordability, especially for low-income populations who could benefit the most from this innovation. Advocacy groups have already highlighted that recent funding cuts to global HIV programs could limit potential impacts, raising important questions about how effectively Yeztugo can be integrated into public health strategies. Potential impact on HIV vaccine research. Yeztugo's approval also carries implications for ongoing research into an HIV vaccine. Because lenacapavir provides high levels of protection against HIV infection, it raises ethical dilemmas regarding vaccine trials. Current vaccine candidates may struggle to recruit participants when effective prevention methods like Yeztugo are available, as it would be unethical to offer a placebo when an effective option exists. Experts warn that the emergence of such effective treatment modalities could divert funding and interest away from vaccine research, which has historically faced significant challenges. In a landscape where HIV vaccine development has been stagnant for over 40 years, the success of lenacapavir could potentially reshape priorities within the field, complicating efforts to achieve a long-term solution to the epidemic. The broader context of global HIV initiatives. The broader context of global health initiatives cannot be ignored when discussing the implications of Yeztugo's approval. The dismantling of existing healthcare infrastructures and support for HIV programs, particularly in the U.S., poses a significant barrier to the successful implementation of new prevention strategies. Cuts to funding from programs like USAID and PEPFAR jeopardize the very frameworks needed to distribute and educate populations about new treatments effectively. Advocacy groups caution that without robust support systems, including education and distribution networks, the potential of Yeztugo to significantly alter the course of the HIV epidemic may not be realized. The metaphor of building the best plane in the world but tearing up all the runways aptly captures the situation. Innovative treatments must be paired with comprehensive public health strategies to ensure their success. Conclusion. Yeztugo represents a monumental advancement in HIV prevention, but its potential impact will hinge on how well the challenges of accessibility, affordability, and systemic support are addressed. The approval's significance extends beyond its immediate efficacy. It raises broader questions about the future of HIV prevention and treatment in a world grappling with persistent health inequities. While many will celebrate this breakthrough, it is crucial to remain vigilant about the barriers that may impede its success in real-world applications, especially for vulnerable populations. Failing to address these issues may diminish the transformative potential of lenacapavir in the fight against HIV. 1. Milestone in HIV prevention and efficacy of lenacapavir. The FDA's approval of Yeztugo lenacapavir signifies a transformative advancement in HIV prevention, offering a twice-yearly injectable option for pre-exposure prophylaxis PrEP. This is particularly impactful given the clinical trial data from the PURPOSE 1 and PURPOSE 2 studies, which demonstrated over 99.9% of participants remained HIV negative. Yeztugo outperformed daily oral PrEP options such as Truvada, especially among cisgender women in sub-Saharan Africa and gender-diverse individuals. This remarkable efficacy could lead to increased adoption of PrEP, addressing long-standing issues of adherence and stigma associated with daily medication regimens. 2. Addressing barriers to access and adherence. Yeztugo's long-acting formulation aims to mitigate challenges historically faced by daily oral PrEP users, including adherence difficulties and societal stigma. Experts believe that the ease of a twice-yearly injection could enhance uptake among populations that have been underserved by existing options. This is particularly significant in the context of public health strategies aimed at curbing new HIV infections, where increased accessibility could lead to better outcomes in at-risk groups. 3. Concerns regarding global accessibility. Despite the promise of lenacapavir, concerns persist about its accessibility, particularly in low and middle-income countries where healthcare infrastructures may not support regular injections. Gilead Sciences is exploring self-administration options and has negotiated licensing agreements with generic manufacturers to broaden availability. However, potential pricing issues and recent cuts to U.S. support for global HIV programs could hinder the drug's implementation and effectiveness in regions that need it the most. 4. Implications for future HIV research and vaccine development. Lenacapavir's approval poses implications for ongoing HIV vaccine research. With an effective prevention option now available, the ethical landscape for vaccine trials may change as participants may be less willing to accept placebo treatments when effective alternatives exist. This could slow the progress of vaccine development, which has been a challenging area of research for decades. Additionally, lenacapavir's long-acting profile may pave the way for innovative therapeutic strategies, reshaping the future of HIV treatment and prevention. Here are 3 famous historical cases similar in nature to the recent FDA approval of Yeztugo lenacapavir for HIV prevention, focusing on significant medical breakthroughs in the fight against infectious diseases. 1. The development of penicillin 1928-1940s. Discovered by Alexander Fleming in 1928, penicillin was the first true antibiotic and marked the beginning of modern medicine's ability to treat bacterial infections. Its widespread use began in the early 1940s during World War II, drastically reducing the number of deaths from bacterial infections and revolutionizing the field of medicine. The introduction of penicillin not only saved countless lives but also set the stage for the development of other antibiotics and antimicrobial treatments. Similar to lenacapavir, which addresses barriers in HIV prevention, adherence, and accessibility, penicillin overcame the challenges posed by bacterial infections and changed public health outcomes globally. 2. The introduction of the oral polio vaccine 1961. Developed by Albert Sabin, the oral polio vaccine OPV was a major advancement in the fight against poliomyelitis, a disease that had caused widespread paralysis and death for decades. The OPV was easy to administer and led to mass immunization campaigns, significantly reducing the incidence of polio worldwide and bringing many countries closer to eradication. The success of the OPV parallels the potential impact of lenacapavir, as both innovations are designed to prevent disease transmission in a more accessible and user-friendly manner. The OPV's success in public health showcases how effective vaccination strategies can eliminate diseases that were once common and feared. 3. The approval of Truvada for PrEP 2012. Truvada emtricitabine/tenofovir disoproxil fumarate was the first drug approved for pre-exposure prophylaxis PrEP against HIV. Its approval marked a critical turning point in HIV prevention, allowing individuals at high risk of acquiring HIV to reduce their chances of infection significantly. The efficacy of Truvada in clinical trials encouraged its adoption and led to a broader acceptance of PrEP as a prevention strategy. Similar to the recent approval of lenacapavir, Truvada faced challenges related to adherence, stigma, and access, highlighting ongoing public health efforts to improve HIV prevention strategies. Both Truvada and lenacapavir exemplify the importance of innovative treatments in addressing the HIV epidemic and the need for multifaceted approaches to enhance public health outcomes. These historical cases illustrate how significant advancements in medical science can transform disease prevention and treatment, much like the recent approval of lenacapavir for HIV prevention represents a potential breakthrough in the fight against the HIV epidemic. The recent FDA approval of Yeztugo lenacapavir as a twice-yearly injectable option for HIV prevention marks a significant turning point in the fight against HIV/AIDS. This new preventive treatment, which has demonstrated over 99.9% efficacy in clinical trials, offers hope for improving adherence rates and accessibility compared to daily oral PrEP options. However, its future impact hinges on multiple factors, including accessibility, cost, global healthcare infrastructure, and ongoing support for HIV programs. Future outlook and predictions. 1. Increased uptake of PrEP. The introduction of lenacapavir is expected to significantly boost PrEP uptake, especially among populations historically underserved by daily oral medications. The convenience of a twice-yearly injection could address barriers such as stigma and adherence issues that have limited the daily oral PrEP's effectiveness. Health experts predict that if lenacapavir is integrated into public health strategies effectively, we could see a marked increase in the number of individuals protected against HIV. 2. Global health strategy revisions. In light of lenacapavir's approval, global health organizations may revise their strategies to emphasize long-acting injectables as preferred options for HIV prevention. This could lead to a shift in funding and resource allocation toward developing infrastructure that supports regular healthcare visits for injections, especially in low and middle-income countries where HIV prevalence remains high. 3. Potential for self-administration. Gilead's ongoing exploration of self-administration options for lenacapavir could revolutionize HIV prevention. If successful, this would allow individuals to manage their own treatment, increasing accessibility and convenience. The development of a self-administered version could be particularly beneficial in regions lacking robust healthcare infrastructure. 4. Impact on vaccine research. The efficacy of lenacapavir may influence ongoing HIV vaccine research. With a highly effective prevention method available, there may be ethical challenges in conducting trials for new vaccines, as participants may prefer to receive lenacapavir instead of being assigned to placebo groups. This could slow the pace of vaccine development, as researchers might need to re-evaluate their approaches in light of this new treatment option. 5. Cost and accessibility challenges. Despite its potential, lenacapavir's impact could be hampered by issues of affordability and accessibility, particularly in low-income regions. While Gilead has negotiated licensing agreements with generic manufacturers to provide lenacapavir in low and middle-income countries, the implementation of these plans will be crucial. Advocacy groups warn that cuts to HIV funding in the U.S. could limit the drug's reach, emphasizing the need for sustained investment in global health initiatives. 6. Integration into public health infrastructure. Effective integration of lenacapavir into existing public health systems will be essential. This includes training healthcare providers, ensuring that regular HIV testing is available prior to injections, and establishing community outreach programs to raise awareness. Without strong public health support, the transformative potential of lenacapavir may not be fully realized. 7. Long-term monitoring and resistance management. As lenacapavir is rolled out, a robust framework for monitoring its long-term effects and managing potential resistance will be necessary. Ensuring that individuals are regularly tested for HIV before receiving injections will be critical in preventing the development of drug-resistant HIV strains, which could complicate treatment efforts in the future. 8. Enhanced collaboration among stakeholders. The success of lenacapavir will depend on enhanced collaboration among pharmaceutical companies, healthcare providers, government agencies, and non-governmental organizations. By working together, these stakeholders can create comprehensive strategies that address the multifaceted challenges of HIV prevention and treatment. 9. Potential for broader therapeutic applications. The success of lenacapavir in preventing HIV may pave the way for developing similar long-acting therapies for other infectious diseases. As researchers explore its mechanisms, there may be opportunities to leverage this technology for broader applications, potentially transforming the landscape of infectious disease prevention. 10. Monitoring epidemiological trends. Public health agencies will need to closely monitor epidemiological trends to assess the real-world impact of lenacapavir. Tracking new HIV infection rates, treatment adherence, and demographic data will be critical in evaluating the effectiveness of this new prevention strategy and making necessary adjustments to public health policies. Conclusion. The approval of Yeztugo represents a significant advancement in HIV prevention, with the potential to reshape the landscape of HIV treatment and prevention strategies worldwide. However, realizing its full potential will require concerted efforts to address accessibility, affordability, and the broader context of global health initiatives. If these challenges can be met, lenacapavir could play a crucial role in reducing new HIV infections and ultimately ending the epidemic.